As I recall growing up until about, till I was about 15, 16, I don't think I ever saw an openly gay person or even understood what that was. But when I was young, I was called a faggot before I even knew what it meant, which is kind of really shocking to think about. But, I kind of grew up in this, pretty sheltered because I went to Catholic school, and I didn't come out of the closet until second year in college.
What year was that?
I want to say probably 1980. So around that time, as a matter of fact, 1981, was the first newspaper article about this strange affliction that was, striking gay men in New York and San Francisco. And at that time, I didn't, it did not get to the national news for quite a while. It's a really difficult time, and if you weren't going to memorial service for someone that was a close friend and your friends weren't dropping like flies, you were paranoid the whole time, that thinking you're going to get it.
Disease Control says nationwide AIDS has struck 1,641 mostly homosexuals. 644 people have died from the mystery disease.
It was shocking. But it was building so slowly, you kind of didn't realize what you were dealing with. And suddenly it was like you were going to a funeral every weekend.
There was talk governmentally of, requiring a test, and the results would be made public. Again, they never went through, never was a possibility, but it's kind of really interesting thing, the stigma of it, In the beginning, it was very stigmatized. When I worked in a restaurant, and at one point, when AIDS was prevalent, they talked about having us wear gloves to kind of to serve dinner and things like that, which is, that's how weird it was. People wouldn't use the same bathroom. When people died in the beginning, mortuaries turned them away because they were afraid that they could get it from a dead body. It's just horrible, the things that happen, It forced the gay community to band together and to protest the government for more money to spend on research and trying to find a cure, but also they protested the drug companies to push them to make these trials of experimental drugs sooner, because it normally would take 5 or 10 years. And now we see in the age of COVID, in less than a year we got a vaccine. But COVID was hitting everybody, not just the homosexuals. At the time, because it was mostly homosexuals, they didn't, the president at the time, Ronald Reagan, didn't mention the word AIDS until second or third year of its presidency.
It's a state of emergency! We had a government that wouldn't say the word AIDS. Communities of people started to speak for themselves.
And again, you look at these things and all these things that happened, and, if this happened to 10 white heterosexual men, they would have been on it, because of the patriarchy. But it happened to a group that they'd rather get rid of, there wasn't that much concern. It's interesting, I kind of thought similar things at the beginning of COVID, when the biggest victims were senior citizens who were already in nursing homes. So in a certain way, people could look at that the same thing. Well, they're old, they're out to pasture, they're going to die anyhow. So they're, it's a burden, one less burden on our economy not to have to subsidize nursing homes and Social Security and things like that. But it's an interesting comparison, although very, very different. But you just think the progression in science was able to come up with a vaccine so quickly. And again, we still don't have a vaccine for HIV. Some people have even hinted that perhaps the pharmaceutical companies have one, but they're not releasing it because they're making so much money on drugs.